Stories we're following at this hour. Allies unite during tough times. Presidents Moon and Trump agree to work together to save lives and restore economic growth. Trump also reportedly requested medical supplies from South Korea, promising swift FDA approval. It's official. The Tokyo Olympics will be held by the summer of 2021, a delay of 1 year due to the coronavirus pandemic. It's the first postponement in peacetime, and the move looks set to cost billions of dollars. Plus, South Korea strongly bashes Tokyo's false territorial claims over Korea's Dokdo islets through its latest school textbook authorization. With the world holding up to South Korea as a stellar model of a nation flattening the curve of COVID-19 infections, foreign leaders have taken note and are seeking for tips. Taking to the phone late Tuesday evening, U.S. President Donald Trump asked his South Korean counterpart Moon Jae-in to send medical supplies to the United States to help combat the coronavirus outbreak there. The White House also said the two leaders discussed their bilateral efforts to fight the pandemic and restore economic growth. Our presidential correspondent Kim Min-ji starting us off.
President Moon Jae-in says he will provide as much medical equipment support as he can to the U.S. to counter the COVID-19 outbreak there. His remarks came in response to President Donald Trump's request during a phone call late Tuesday, with President Moon pledging he would send it as long as there are enough supplies domestically. According to Seoul's top office, the two leaders discussed ways to step up bilateral cooperation to overcome the outbreak during their 23-minute conversation. The phone call, made at the request of President Trump, was the first of its kind between the two leaders in 2020. President Moon noted the approval of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration may be required for such support, to which President Trump said he would take immediate action to ensure there were no issues. President Trump showed a keen interest in the trend of infections in South Korea, saying the country was doing very well in its fight against the virus. South Korea has been praised globally for its quarantine and treatment efforts and has been exporting COVID-19 test kits. The two leaders also agreed the recent $60 billion currency swap deal between Seoul and Washington was a timely decision which contributed to the stabilization of the international financial market. In regard to the G20 virtual summit scheduled for Thursday, President Moon stressed it will be important for world leaders to send out a united message regarding COVID-19. The South Korean leader said he hopes for in-depth discussions on revitalizing international trade and allowing overseas travel for business people to minimize the negative impact on the global economy, so long as it doesn't affect the quarantine efforts of each country. President Trump agreed to bring up the matter during the session. On the same day, President Moon held phone talks with Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. He stressed the need for greater international cooperation than ever due to the COVID-19 outbreak, not just on welfare but in the areas of the economy, finance, and society. Moon added South Korea was willing to share its experience in quarantine and treatment, as well as data on clinical tests. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, South Korea is raising the bar even further for overseas entrants to South Korea. Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun says the country will conduct coronavirus checks on all travelers coming in from the U.S. starting Friday at the latest. Speaking at a daily countermeasures meeting this Wednesday morning, Chung said the measures comes as the nation attempts to contain the growing number of imported cases. Here's PM earlier today.
미국의 확진자가 급증함에 따라서 불안감을 느끼는 북미 지역 유학생 등 우리 국민들의 귀국 수요가 늘어날 것으로 예상되는 상황에서 지체할 시간이 별로 없습니다.
As of Tuesday midnight, 30% of newly added coronavirus patients in South Korea were people who had come from overseas. And South Korea confirmed 76 more COVID-19 cases on Tuesday, a third straight day of only double-digit daily increases. The total number of infected stands at 9,037 and a death toll at 124. Another 341 coronavirus patients were released, bringing the number of cured to 3,507. The South Korean government will dish out over $400 million of employment retention subsidies to support all industries hit by the pandemic. During a meeting with economy-related ministers on Wednesday, Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi said the fund will be expanded from just under $100 million to over $400 million. Now, that money will go to all industries across the nation from April to June. Hong also added that South Korea will temporarily ease foreign exchange liquidity rules to push local financial firms to pump more dollars into the currency market. The government will also exempt a levy on those firms to make it easier for them to get on hold of foreign currency. Now, details of these measures will be announced later this week. In hand with the Japanese government, the International Olympic Committee conclusively announced on Tuesday that Tokyo will postpone the Olympics by 1 year, the first time in modern Olympic history that the Games have been postponed. The economic repercussions of the move are likely to be around $5 to $6 billion. Our Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
Once the COVID-19 outbreak really caught hold, there was sense of inevitability. But finally, we now know for sure that the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympic Games will not be held this year. After a phone call with Thomas Bach, the head of the IOC, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Tuesday announced that the Games, which were slated for a July 24th start, will be delayed until 2021.
I got an answer from President Bach that he agreed 100%. We agreed that we would hold the Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics by the summer of 2021.
Bach announced the postponement shortly after, saying the decision was made to safeguard the health of athletes and everybody involved in the Olympics. The decision is an unprecedented move, as it's the first ever postponement of an Olympics in its long history. Previously, the Olympics have been canceled due to world wars. So will next year's Olympic Games be called 2021 Tokyo Summer Olympic Games? According to the IOC chief, the answer is no.
And we also agreed that the name will be kept as Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, again to show our commitment and the highly symbolic meaning of these Olympic Games, who then hopefully it can and will be at the end a celebration of humankind having overcome this unprecedented challenge of the coronavirus.
And what kind of impact will the postponements have? According to experts, overall domestic financial losses could reach between $5 to $6 billion. The impact will apply to both the host nation and companies which have poured an estimated $3 billion into sponsorships. The Tokyo Games being delayed 1 year also raises speculation the next Summer Olympic Games, slated for 2024 in Paris, may also be pushed back. However, the head of the Paris Games Organizing Committee insists the postponement of the Tokyo Olympics will have no impact and the event will go ahead as scheduled in summer 2024. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The coronavirus outbreak has now infected at least 417,000 people in some 200 countries worldwide. World powers are continuing their efforts to contain the virus by locking down their cities or even their entire borders. In the United States, despite seeing a rapid surge in patients, President Donald Trump hopes to have the American economy fully up and running within weeks. Our Kim Mo-gyun tells us more.
The number of COVID-19 cases in the U.S. has been rising rapidly, topping 53,000 as of 8 p.m. Tuesday local time. The figure was reached just 2 months after the country confirmed its first infection in late January. The number of infected has been rising nearly 10,000 a day since last Thursday. The country's death toll stands at least 670. Despite the surge in cases, during a town hall on Fox News, President Trump spoke about his hope to reopen the U.S. economy by mid-April, claiming a prolonged shutdown could destroy the country.
But we have to put the country to work. Look, you're going to lose a number of people to the flu, but you're going to lose more people by putting a country into a massive recession or depression.
President Trump said Americans could continue practicing social distancing while also going back to work. Other countries are focusing on their own quarantine efforts. In India, which has seen more than 500 cases and at least 10 deaths as of Wednesday, a 21-day lockdown has been imposed.
From 12 midnight, there will be a complete lockdown in the country. There will be a total ban on venturing out of houses from 12 midnight. To save India, to save every citizen of India, to save you and your family.
Modi said there were growing concerns about prospects for the virus to spread into India's impoverished communities and the inability of India's public health sectors to cope with it. In Europe, at least 200,000 people have been infected, with the number of deaths approaching 11,000. Italy and Spain are the worst hit, with a combined number of infected patients in the two countries accounting for more than half of Europe's total infections. Britain, which has seen more than 8,000 cases and over 420 deaths, is looking for thousands of volunteers to help COVID-19 patients in quarantine.
We're seeking 250,000 volunteers, people in good health, to help the NHS for shopping and for delivery of medicines and to support those who are shielded to protect their own health.
Britain also plans to open a temporary hospital in London next week to accommodate at least 4,000 patients. Meanwhile, China's Hubei province, the epicenter of the outbreak, will allow transportation to resume for the city of Wuhan on April 8th, lifting the city's 2-month lockdown. Authorities say the decision was made as Hubei saw no new infections on March 19th, a dramatic plunge from the height of an epidemic that's infected more than 80,000 people and killed over 3,200 in China. Kim Mo-gyan, Arirang News.
Shifting focus, the South Korean government has strongly protested Japan's latest approval of school textbooks that contain false territorial claims of South Korea's easternmost islets of Dokdo. Seoul's foreign ministry again stressed that Dokdo is clearly South Korea's territory. Our Kim Hyo-sun reports.
South Korea's foreign ministry has issued a strong complaint against Japan's approval of school textbooks containing false claims about Korea's Dokdo islets. The ministry summoned Japanese Ambassador Koji Tomita on Tuesday to lodge a complaint. This comes as Tokyo's education ministry approved textbooks that repeat Japan's false claim the islets are Japanese territory and are illegally occupied by South Korea. Of the 17 middle school textbooks that were newly authorized, 14 on history, civics, and geography contain such false claims. Seoul's foreign ministry issued a statement Tuesday that expressed the government's strong protest over Tokyo's latest decision, explaining the textbooks distort, reduce, and omit clear historical facts and contain unjust claims. It also called for immediate corrections to be made. The ministry also reiterated that Dokdo is clearly South Korea's inherent territory historically, geographically, and by international law. The South Korean Education Ministry also issued a statement condemning Japan, saying it poses a serious threat to the future of Northeast Asia. With Japan's latest textbook approval, which has prompted Seoul to once again urge Tokyo to look squarely at history and show responsibility in educating future generations, bilateral relations between the two neighbors could deteriorate even further. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Good morning. We are looking at a very warm Wednesday. Temperatures will be a couple degrees higher than yesterday in most parts. And bright skies for the first half of the day, then clouds will move in. In fact, Jeju will turn totally cloudy with rain in the forecast from late tonight. It's going to be a welcome rain for the entire country because dry weather alerts remain in place for much of the peninsula. Ulsan and Gyeongsang-Bukdo province, in fact, have been under dry weather warnings for 5 days in a row. Also, those of us in the central western regions and Jeollado provinces will see high levels of ultra-fine dust. But the dryness and dust will ease with nationwide rain in store from tomorrow afternoon into early Friday, but showers will also bring cooler air to the country. Spring rain will soak the country. The further south you are, the heavier rainfall you'll see. In fact, Jeju and southern coastal regions will need to brace for some strong downpours. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for news around the world.
And that is our time at this hour on Arirang News. But more news lineup coming up next in our later newscast at noon Korea time. Thank you for watching and goodbye.